Menka kwabo.
Yenia o minia what to say.
Nyamia dominem paibo na wo so e.
Yesu shrai so ye ho ye.
Esi ade asemu eda bama so ne Ghana ban se akonta mining for eye galamsey nti wo mutumi krata waje efiri wo nsem. Asem hu ne sen.
Oh, no, nya na say Ghana ban ye sadio. Ghana ban say kana nanado person say omoye. Akonta mining na or two former goodie no ne concession outside the Canon Nimri Forest Reserve. Ne juma na oye no na buffer policy wo hono kana on buffer policy ni juma. Na ejuma oye wo the concession outside Forest Reserve na Canon no say Canon. Na onwanka sano na omo for Canon Nimri Forest Reserve no ekoye ejuma inti Minister for Lands and Natural Resources Honorable John Jirapo pointed out normal as baby Canon Forest Reserve omo na illegality Emma Minerals Commission also confirm normal there was in situations na police for ekwa separate omo and conform Samara boy because no more there were evidence of vehicles in Roman water no Nimre Forest Reserve. You see, Akonta mining the young Ghana Coalition against Galamsey Media Coalition and a few of us. There were petition I had call Ekoma IGP near Attorney General long time ago. Thank our President Nanado a year so or yeah. Nkabano Akonta mining thank two directors no any company no any common license get revoked that. It's a positive thing. I buy way there are other mining firms. So I say omukra so here the same thing. Heritage in Korea. Yeah, normal exploratory lease. Normal some more forest no na omu to a form good deal. So it is important say in politically exposed persons omuka galamsey iwa ye nyomu bibia na ye start your bibia. For me I think it's a good step I start but it's just the beginning. Osha NDC MP for our way. Me ahemfo are accusing of involvement in galamsey or say nyampa or no counter accusing ahemfo that case na say investigate Stammer boy hankasa NDC constituency chairperson soldier for alcohol omokoye omoko boy no he was stopping them and also say he has a question to answer ask them NDC constituency chairman and large scale mining firms are accusing of involvement in galamsey. It's Akonta mining and see making sure that other people, including Professor Pimpo Boateng, the report or conform Omujiniano, see the Omunia account. They making sure say you're making conform.
Yewra obi bebisa se wo mo sha se se wo mu di wo mu dwuma ne nyanne eyensu hye be na atena se aye nhwe han ma na bebedu mpempenso ati sei.
At the end of the fact that we were license, the fact that we were mining lease, no, and no one says to me illegality. The amount lease, no one year, according to the license, illegality. I am back. And not in a Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, no, or say Forestry Commission for any Minerals Commission for no, Forestry Guards for almost almost can't home as I call to. Minerals Commission, minerals inspectors almost count. Interdict omunia na important. So I know my course. The level of devastation taking place in San Antonio Forest Reserve. And yeah, nene a shot here, and yeah, and a shot here all the time. Your report, your media for much more reporting various footages of the damage ecosystem and natural ecosystem. Into that technically involved, MCEs, DCEs are involved. In the Anuka Minister for Land or Car said President, in terms of DCEs, any MCs are appoint you almost major KPI there galamsey. And no sooner there's a Minister for Interior, or can say IGP, and reshuffle police for no, or can also say the new ones that they call almost all probation, almost all key performance indicators. No, every year Galamsey again. Some no many say any no phobia account state of emergency. LIS say 2462 say they revoking a police minister of interior order your market or yes. foreigners are yen deport you. Some woman as yes, no near the bottom normal papa now almost start NDC for Minister for Lands start the and Minister for Defense and also a human oil and Minister for Interior crime may born no crime so the issue about police for the and also your papa interior no count na yenya invitation na Minister for Lands there my say yamba walk when yenya the come one or queen ye betin kudi.
Wokasa na semba kwa na woka a state of emergency. I no Deputy Director ya wash operations wa bank se Mustafa Bandi say ye ne sa investors no e be pamu wo mu won ne nya adwene sa.
Dingo sa minister ya sa papa Mustafa Bandi bra omo opposition ono no koka say omo back into power mema galamsey for no akọ back into the forest reserve. Now, no, the president call for the state of emergency. Onko tie idea some of one Catholic government for more opposition kind. There can state of emergency. Yen can state of emergency. Yen yo Accra. Yen yo Takrady. Yes, say forest reserve. That can only be forest reserve. You want Akan mining asset no potoi. And no na yen can say yen making sure the state of emergency be wo. Abrewa eninkai. Community who declare state of emergency those communities to ensure that the president has special power. It is a special court being set up for what in California, Bonina, immediately any of the court UK and no and I can't want it. In Papa, you name Sama Walker. And the day of who say for investors, the background, Mushu, Ayapoto, you say they cannot Akota mining for Monomana Amanaye. And now also said for investors, almost say or forestry commission for almost forest reserves in Kakoyotuma. They took almost at Chomoda Hospital. And no never investors Abakuma. He doesn't know what it is that he's talking about. State of emergency, no, yen can't say state of emergency, no, yen what the whole Ghana. And yen can't say state of emergency, yeah, you know, human rights, no man, we should not respect it. The only thing say if you are at war, no, you need to use special powers to ensure that over to me dealing with. In terms of state of emergency now, you can't say state of emergency in particular parts, but yeah, acquire dangerous. Minister no crack and say forest reserves, a year 9 amount to be about say or almost to me go almost so much 7 2 never on 2 never on I think now to be declared state of emergency so that you are able to deal with those situations. I completely vehemently disagree with him. Advise by now president in declare state of emergency. Mr. President, it is important to declare state of emergency, not in the whole of Ghana, but in the areas now. Or Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, or Minister for Defense, or Minister for Interior, almost bread to be able to deal with it. What declare what? With special power, with you and making sure the human rights will be obeyed. You know? There will be no threat to our investments. So yeah, now you see that and no investments into me.
Yeah, galamsey wo sha ye betime to ase.
Say yen as amount for no. Say they say sapo munsio. Na ye ta media echi. Na Minister for Lands and Natural Resources invitation na wa ye to yen no. Na ye nya ye somua. Na ye pushia. Na ye say yen sovereignty no. O share yen preamble of your constitution or say sovereignty resides with many as citizens. Say ye point here and now you bet me win. Into yen Ghana coalition against galamsey. Yeah, you better in the very coming days. You better press conference be. Now you launching another stage. You better sticker campaign. You better PCFM, a PCFM, a Tiophonia. You better PCFM stickers or whatever mom. Yen ya for stickers and carry a castle. Yen share red bands. Na yen share president and minister. And say yes, how much? So almost yen papa to fight the galamsey now. The MCO year to say LI 2462 no ma na ye pointed to them na ye nya together no ye to nya fight with say ye nya ye yes a short one sorry a info sorry professional bodies yen sorry na motai ye nya motai media eduma mo ye chia ye betin kuli
yo engineer we ma ya nase ene won church ma wo de asom ye na ye tiefo Convener the coalition against illegal mining engineer Kenneth Ashibeni Yakoya yene ne kodi nkomo na yento asonhwe IGP Resha for waye ewo police commanders emu yene policy leader war minerals and mining for Africa Center for Energy Policy ACEP ye Railiasu eli ekwa kodi nkomo ye bisano se Resha for way ne kwanso ano no anasa ye ntem dodo opani yakwa aba o ye rally utemenka akwaba yo ye guso a ye bo ye homoden se ye nsa betimi aka opani na ye ne di nkomo ye ra akwaba enkomo a ye hwe se ye betimi edi IGP Resha for ya wode ahyehye so titiri ni police commanders ahodo a wo mo ewo bia ya ye to form egudie eno de kuti kwan so ho asem na ye ken na ye guso a ye bo ye homoden se ye nsa betimi aka no na afa ye timi edi nkomo afa sansem wo ye mu ye besan so akona ye ni pani kwankyerefo a wabene ewo bambom nsem ye wurasani adib akodi enkomo se eya na hyehye na hye ase se eba se ya abane se metu asie no wo hye ase se ya ne kwan so ano no a ana se wo se abane ya bibi foforo ede ka ho enti ye behwe se ye betimi nya mpanifo mienu wei na ye ne wo mo edi nkomo na afi senia wo mo wo fa galamsey ehun tokwa hwai na abane ne hwai sen ena besi akono yensa ka opani Eliasu ahoma no so yewra akwa abawo
yes
yo pacho wadama wotemenka
hello
aha media mete wonka minim sa wotemenka dia
yeah hello
yeah
I can hear you clearly.
Oh,
I
okay.
just want to clarify that we are granting the interview in English because,
okay
yes
okay so is this Mr. Eliasu Ali?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. What we are talking about is your take on IGP's reshuffle of police commander station in Galamsey site.
So I think that, so what we have been advocating for over the last year has been for government to take a decisive action on Galamsey, specifically audit the issued licenses. I think that in the short term, to station people on the site would only provide a short-term remedy, which of course is necessary to halt the urgency of the moment in terms of the distractions caused to our water bodies. But I think in the longer term, the policy incentives for Galamsey, specifically in terms of the revocation of the LIS 2467, really needs to be actioned by government as promised. So once that is done, one other aspect that we have always been advocating for is the fact that the licensing regime for the small-scale mining sector could have degenerated into more like a way to legalize the illegality by just issuing licenses that they do not adhere to the environmental safeguards. So yes, that would provide a short-term remedy, but in the long term, there have to be decisive action on government to actually provide policy disincentives for Galamsey.
What are the biggest challenges in enforcing laws and regulations against Galamsey in Ghana?
I think outrightly we are not alluded to the fact that there's political incentive to actually sustain the Galamsey menace. It is not, lost on earth that Galamsey is a key source of revenue for political party financing, and we are aware of the reports that actually point to this fact. So the political incentive to sustain illegal mining, cannot be dismissed. Of course, we are also very privy to the reports where top government officials that are supposed to lead a crackdown on Galamsey have actually been fished, red-handed in the act, right? So that would be the key challenge to the fight against galamsey, because no political party wants to put their electoral benefits on the line to actually crack down on this menace, because in the short term there are people that would in quote lose their jobs, because there are scores of people, of Ghanaians, that are gainfully employed in the sector. But I think that we need to reassess the individual benefits against the collective good and take a decisive action on it. So the political incentive to sustain the act would be the greatest challenge. And as I said, that's why we need to ensure that the actions are not just meant for the optics, for placing people on the side that would, for today, stop galamseyers from coming on site. But for how long are you going to be stationed there? And there'll be new sites opened. Are you going to continue expanding the gas that you put on site? And how insulated are they from being compromised and all of that? So there has to be real political commitment to crack down on this issue of galamsey.
So what role can civil society organizations like ACEP play in the fighting against galamsey in the country?
I think ACEP and other civil society organizations have actually been leading the cause in this fight against galamsey. We have released a lot of press statements and provided alternatives on how government should address it with a sense of urgency. And to that extent, I think that the citizens actually adding their voices and rallying behind the sign and the advocacy pathways provided by civil society would be a very important step to actually put pressure, to put the needed demand-side pressure on government to make the urgent calls that are needed to halt the issue of galamsey. So civil society can only do their part in terms of advocacy, but at the end of the day, the mandate really lies with government to action it. We do have the agency as citizens, as stakeholders of our mineral resources, to demand for the right thing to be done. And so increased voices from the broad-based citizenry would actually add to the pressures needed to push government to action.
So a quick one, your response to the government revocation of Akan mining lease. Do you believe this is sufficient?
So you're asking if I believe that it is sufficient to revoke the lease. We have made our stance on this revocation of the lease very clear in our last press statements, where ACEP's concerns are with regards to the due process and to some extent a blank sight on the part of government on the risks of the actions that they are taking. We believe that the government could have done more to engage rather than what seems like a knee-jerk approach that reeks of bland nationalization drive. The law, as we indicated in our presser, is clear on dispute resolution approaches, which favors mutual discussions and alternative dispute resolution methods to reach amicable solutions. So we believe that the government should adhere to the laws that it enjoins on the private actors to adhere to. We think that the seeming bad faith against the mining laws in terms of the actions taken on this issue is not in the interest of the investment climate for the mining sector, and that due diligence and adherence to the due processes would actually go a long way to maintain investor confidence in the sector, and also ensure that we optimize the needed benefits from the mining sector.
Your time this afternoon.
You're welcome.
Okay. Eti openi anili kodi nkomo wanu ya policy lead minerals and mining edema ACEP kuono Iliasu Ali. Ni nkomo twetwe nyina akogina galamsey okon kese ya na aban ekase we shy wo so no kwan ben so en ye betimi etu ase mbisa ne nsemfu ahodo na ebra meka se de yenya yewura Sani Adib ewa homa no so nti yewia na afei ya ba befa eno yewura kwa ba yo enti yabehwa se ebetimi enya na afi nkomotwetwe netimi atoa so ya pem so de ani atremu ewo ensefo from din edema wasanso aba yenkoyechi yera akwaba o
yenia
yo apomba kwa de
boko yeda yakopon ase musiwe
anyame adom ene empaibo ye ho odin IGP resafo yi a waye ni aba wo nche ye ba besua de kakra menim ne kwan so ano no anasa IGP apre ne hododo.
Well, IGP already in the stance they were making it clear from day one or three they would use all necessary legal and lawful means to deal with galamsey and what it also means is that ube your house cleaning, ube making sure say ufi you're very clean, very neat before ube tumia kusa ntakwano. Instead, fine. Very good. Say we are police being our community be at least GDP womb between a police for any community members, based on mutual trust and respect. However, in some cases also, that GDP interaction, it leads sometimes into complicity. The fact that only more we are very close to the extent that which we are influence so empty na periodic basis to me rotate and say IGP or punish police being informed they be it is something that is even routine in the first place and say why at the body in the altar sound so I don't want a situation where police being would think say they be maybe they come after me and I be bisa. Sometimes acquaintanceship lead to in some cases complicity, okay, but all the time. And so a part of effort on the part of IGP, you were Christian Totonyano, to sanitize the police from the very top to the very bottom. So at least with integrity, they be see. I'm saying to me use one approach to dealing with it. It's a combination of different issues, including law enforcement. Because the thing is, in many cases, especially in the previous administration, within some few weeks, that same person would be at the galamsey site again. So now law enforcement was a bit of a problem. Okay, so I feel they want to make sure say all these persons found culpable are dealt with according to the law. Aside that, it be more as a means of survival almost a human so we need to, in as much as a critical say, use kinetic approach, any a soldier for Astra for using non-kinetic approach, that is the socio-economic issues. People having access to basic necessities of life, to say journey, school, any other. And just you'll be dealing with sustainable blow to galamsey. But if you deal with it superficially, young coach or mukeke, without dealing with other issues, no law enforcement issues, any other, then ochina omubeko parkoyebio. And that has always been the status quo in past administration. A new administration will obviously things have to change. And one of the significant steps is our police movement.
Ba na obi kan say ase ehwehwenu bi na IGP wo pa ya say wo pese Ghana fo nyina hu si wo ba wo ye adwuma nti na wa hyeda etu anamo bi ati say minim say safo no woni omo ya adwen.
Well, the thing is, I mean, once or more appointed IGP, new IGP, expectations will all be brave because then, say, and I'm saying, we've not made anything. In fact, to say, I start to say, you cook galamsey. We are fighting galamsey. That is when galamsey was even growing. So what I say. So, Nipa Bidre, Ghanaians Bidre, almost share IGP Tatanya on to see what he will do. So what I say. So instead of say immediately obey dispatch a police for Muko yes, Debbie, he needs to clean his house first. So a tacit admission say indeed things would have to be put in place at the right places within the police service before So from my perspective as a security person, do my research, me call Eastern Region, Ashanti Region, even recently, now we were Ashanti Region on the main road for Nongu, you don't even have to cross the tree line whilst you are driving on the main road. So, I mean, it has become almost endemic, any pervasive to the extent that it has stretched deep into the very fabric of society. And see, now, people, they have high expectations. And they let us take our time, okay? Because evidence, so things would have to be done the right way. So for me, IGP there, it's a good step in the right direction, and I'm praying say it doesn't stop there. And with payers to say, and very critical, I mean, the next minute they are back on the galamsey side. So let's ensure say would have enough evidence and will make them go through the necessary process and have the ideas and thoughts and ensure say they are dealt with according to the law.
DJ Akan say commanders for ya wo moko sa area si wa how ben sa na wo mbefa mu na so na homa no etwa sinti yemfa ne sia pani kwankyerefo ya wa bene e wo bambo mu nsemu ye rasani adib ne ko ya ye ne kodi nkomo ye pem so e de ani akyeremu e wo nsem from dean e de ma faculty of accounting and finance e wo UPS professor Isaac Bodin worker say wa kyerkyerem say hadwo my Ghana ye sika sam tutu ne hyeda nyina na so ntisika e nwene Ghana pa wa de sansem we nyina to dwabra no woni peace kasebo edi nkomo en watches sika na enwene nyase bia eye to ahodo bia ye ngigio na emum to de bia foto na nkasa sika no wo mu no en enipa bi ntimi nhwa so ye nti na sika na afrimu wato so a kire se 2022 Ghana Revenue Authority mpeni for report or the buy kire se sika $3 billion en ehre Ghana fo
Ghana's financial stability is threatened by massive revenue leakage. Now, Mekan say Ghana, say sika semono. Ade high kesipa revenue in San Enka na fa baby kakaka didia. The GRA reported by in 2022. GRA report is about 3 billion on my Africa no African. Now, illicit trade, financial flows. Afoba gold revenue or gold mining, about 60% of small scale gold mining operations are equivalent. It's about 2 billion. A sure mining report on the Tuja. And now share oil and gas, about 1.5 billion unaccounted for.
Prof Amanensi honma woto aso kire se bia ya Ghana 42 ye tanye esika ye port na fe mineral sector no wose ye besre se mpenifo ema weni enkoho. Assoya one offer mineral areas na. And say online yemfani enko hoyi na obesha bibi about digitalization. How a revenue ye di abefo unsu so ye di beye adwuma ama online sika nipansa ekọ no akibi ye no fi ho na ama online no sabi na ama infidie digital platforms a betini ama attract revenues in real time. Ghost names, ghost invoices, and the declared imports. Now fraudulent deals. And more money is I'm sure say and none idea I will say you need to be brave. Ania Yokotie wani Dean Faculty of Accounting and Finance ewo UPSA Professor Isaac Buedi Sansemwe George Osen wo boano edemayen Kani General Secretary edema MPP amanyuko no yewura kwabene je Japan and workase wasre party mpenifo ese constitution ye MPP amanyuko ne di adwuma no wonto obo asese ne beya wo betimi ayensa kire kese ewo mu wode Sansemwe gina to join na no pay ewo OKFM anopa adwumedie so ade achie bia bra na kwame nkromati wajina kunya wasu wanu ankasa ye Japan say wanu atena se afa captation grand penny bim wade si official sheet so atwa brofa kese pa proposal e de akwa abedwoku a party no wo mo hwa dada constitution mu wase sa asem we ya wo ka ho asem ya esi an wahya ase a wo bohu dawuro sei e koba ne se party penny fo agi atom na afi wo mo ayesansa kireye na wase ebeboa MPP amanyuko ye pa.
So, the proposal I'm the constitutional amendment committee. This is a proposal I'm during the last National Executive Committee meeting and the National Council meeting. And we all recognize that they say, we've been through a very difficult stage of the party's development. They say we have to admit that we were defeated in a massive way, and we can't continue with things for business as usual.
What was switch say implementation no cost of pay. Sasika sama brano ye koto aba ye di wremu nyina na befiri honom na sa wotosom burden ye da party masono etimi efiri ho.
As parents, there's a lot of financial pressure. We are one of the constant election, the police station, electoral area coordinator, constituency chairman, right up to national level. By the time you better to all these elections, maybe from police station, electoral area, constituency, region, national, because they do a similar thing we see, it creates a lot of factionalism in the party.
Wabwa no at the best. For your work, for your man, tell dear to judge. Your work for your man temo dia to judge say they no happy too much cram was here now no what 1k being shame woman yantie ese kwa business forum ekoso na no woman him say send ya na peace kasia boy ye ka ho asam ne de en company for be kaso ya trunk boy ye ka ho asam ne de en company for be kaso ya trunk krata NDCMP sam mo wa po man tembre no e da sentie ba mo mra afi wo mo twen ya bibia samma na wo se ana okay yenya abotre bia da ne so a ye beto nsa de afreye wo mo so wo mo atwen ya besi na egusu a ye kase enkrata bia ma na wo se ha adwene pa NDC mra so bedwene ya wogina hode ma de hia wo Afram Plain South abato empesias wo sanso ye president edema epoye mantem NDC amanyoko mpani fo mra shebedwafo Joseph Apia Boaten en wa kirekiremu wo se ha adwene se dwumedie kase bi sei ekoso invitation no nanka edimu sefata sem wo mo nsa betimi akebie sanse eya adwe toato adwumedie ene koso sa
ebe ne ya de ko meka say be a member organize program no obia amframe obia amamamane in any case kra no ka ombetimi kra de me aka ho ase ebia MP a ufri kwawu ana say Eastern Regional Caucus chairman but obia anka nchem ena obia so invite me ena aden so strictly by invitation enti no untimi nsore keke no wako ye to aba wi a ye koso ye MPs ni in kra no eya omoma invitation ansa na watimi ewura chamber ho ye inauguration so ye presidential one so eno so no ye be invite MPs na se be ya betimi ewuremu a obia enharizo na me no obia anka hwe ankyere me ena obia so mamamane ena obia so amam invitation ena me members na ye Eastern Regional MPs na ye parliament no omo invite ye mu bia
Yera Apia Boaten to aso kire se woda mampani ase wode asem bi de todwa hono a wase betsin na nani agene trimpa
nti kwan nyaba na me party mpanifo ni di nkomo so a na ka chom se bibisa na bebisi a ma omuwie mfiri na ye nyomu ina ena ekonkono ena ye nyomu ina so na egusu a ye ekono na ade ba kokra na de makoma so nra president boss say ye na tem ye ka Afram Prince ye bridge na yakan yakwan nyame ncha de president etimi bo kwan ne so ebo bridge ne so eno no metie no atoma koma so na ya de anka minya kwanya ka me promise no say oba campaign na say tama be ma mensa so no wo share bo sa nti oya obani mpio de kasanim na nyame ncha de o si ade yo John Dramani Mahama ye president otimi ebo so enra nti eno no kura no ayemede mani so age say ogusu kai Afram Prince
Ania Yokotie wano NDC Mra Shebejoni ya wajina hode madesham wawa afram plain South Abato and Persias Joseph Apia Boateng Michael Akrofine Bua Sansen Woyano Edebedanyen Esisia wa my Ghana bebia enyo eye boko nsansam ne de anoa ye de ne ehuru papa namso executive director Edema Alliance for Christian Advocacy Africa Dr. Kwabno Puni Frimpon wakasa wasre Christopher se ni akobe die Christopher kasa anke tuo na dima kumni nyina esubetimi etwa na sansem wenti yankwa homa so ne ene doctor enkodi enkomo ne homa ne hye dan totomu enti yankwa ne yankwohwa akwanhia ano odene enna no pei mo ana mo hwe social media UTV amenase enkra kumase kwantempo no so akwanhia dende pa esi sprinter bus ya wofi enkra pumpuni mantemo na wodne ni echemu ewo kumase ene fuo tanka ene boani arahosam kese pa no se nipa duba ko ene etina nanom ewo ensiedo na wenti yebekwa homa no so na ye ne yensentweni jesi amankwa akodi enkomo wo hwe kwan ya akwanhia ne si ya besi ne ya ye kase dodo na akire se wo monte ase kwan no eye ntata eboho mienu enti eba ne san ena bibi se etimi siye yensencho ni nsam wedi kade ato yenim ne se okay wabanti jasi akwaba o yes otimenka akwaba
bejo so muni aba
wedi amenka se bokọ sanse enya bokosa akwanhia yesi wa manase no twamfoni kira ye hefa pote ene siye
yo minya ba seda okan enanopa emre bo nonum no awrefo sam ne se oba suhu amanase kwan no so a accident nkireche bisia aye awrefo sam papa payi na aimatina mebo shi kodu na chese sprinter bus ena fuel tanker ena akrase ama nipa bebre ahwe wonkwa na ne ba ye nie sprinter bus ya ni registration number GW 6510-23 na ejayedi ewie walodu akwantufoɔ from Accra edinani achre Kumase na fuel tanker no so ani registration number GR 1300-16 ono so wako discharge ni fuel Kumase ordinary achre Accra na mishishe muda ne di pepper se emra odu tanker ne du amanase no it's alleged sena driver no ne ni wia no anase order nti emani tifi ni lemu eba Accra lane na ode be crash sprinter no amunum ho a mekoto so de empempen no na chese nipa 11 a meni tua se omafima emamienu mema 9 Anuti Ghana Police Service, Suhum Ghana Police Service no, Ghana Fire Service, National Ambulance Service no so etimi be PMO ho, eno de omo ya de papa payi try say nipa war sprinter car de mu no, ometimi ayi wonyina afim, especially omo no omo prepare no, edwon akọ Suhum Government Hospital. Na say the car no etimi mu amwan ye nti no, na ese Ghana National Fire Service for the one machine etitwa car na se de be ya omo prepare ewo mu no mbetimi omo afim etini si ni wie na me ne Ghana National Fire Service for PRO kasa ebisa onu odu hon tempa ni din ye AD01 akono opare Daniel oni me kasa na no church peace news mu se onu mpempen a obeto so kosi se ohwema si ni fi hodie osusu se nipa 13 ena efrim osusu se nipa 13 ena efrim but ni meni ni de nipa 11 ena efrim emunu be 6 ene prepare mu odin me aba me no kasa sesi emi Suhum Government Hospital Eastern Regional Minister ononyamfo anaso batampa Rita Akosia awatetie no so ontimi ntina koforidia nti ene wetu anamu aba Suhum Government Hospital omo prepare no waba aba show eti se ono na chairperson for RESEC no regional security ni ntino wasan etu anamu scene so bebia esie na se bibini na esi na se oma authorities no bibi fa kwan no ho a oma ye nti na abrɛho sema ina nopa oba Suhum amanase kwantimpo no so a esie no munyaba
jese ekwan no eyenta nti eba ne sen dual de si den na kwanhia bi atise ano odin sei ma wo hwe sprinter na amoa kra
Pepe minya ba we questions anipa bisa pa yi e se ofi Accra na se wo ko ana so fi kuma se na se wo ba kwantin kro nkwa na wonam na ofi kuma se so ba nkwa na wonam na we see the buy ni se sprinter driver no se de kan yesusu se na order to order sa no na o tifi ni lemu even kwa kwan ne medo no gota da ho no fa gata ne so cross so e be pim sprinter no emumu okra no enye nyame na fa fie asori dan bi nso na ebe nkwan no akodi wura asori dan mu ene se train aso a train ase a edan butu ye no ma okoto hodo but spin tanker driver ne de oni ni mate driver na nkasa prai ba ni mate ni de wempra me ni mate ni kasa no ena o tre me se omu fi kumase no mko discharge ye nti mro medu nkokon mo type high na mo tamo mutu fi kumase no na ahemate 1 enano pay yesane ba no pay 1 eno mtu fi kumase enti onu mate na nkasa kra no wada no wada okay ni but accident ni sie na ma neni so etete no but onu susu se na ne driver no so neni su bia na fi se omo bre pa yi enu ti na koba ni sa
yes wo se mate ni se na wada enti akwanhia na esi nyina we hu neni te yanse wo hu se akwanhia si
sa pepe minya ba mate ni mi kasa o ka chem se ono ka ni no aprenti ono de no wada nti ni driver na no o drive car no ono susu se emno medu amana so na neni su bia no ana se order ena ma ekoso sa
ma yana se pa ne amanebo mu da ho a wode asom ye jesa mankwa ya manebo ni akwanhia den de esi ye na no pe amena se na wode asom ye no na ye to aso de ani akire mu ewo ensemfofro mu dia epo ye mantemo ne ye huri ye kwa kwagina na no kwesi adasa ne yesu wu ya wo sori ne nansa so no enso bi ano oden frama jampantu de ka ho eto power samantanfoi ewie chi nipa a kire se wo munya bebi na ne doso enipa be se 500 wo mo sra ban se wo mo adan be se aduasa 9 34 ebi eye press before mission house ebi so MP dada ne fie ni nyina ene ensuo ne mframa no edwirega ne nyina ade egufom adehye bi ene peace in centrofo edi nkomo ene wo chechem se ensuo ne atonde ne omunim se ahyase no enyankopon hira ne bia na ebo omo so na afei ewie chi na anadwum honde na eya ha adwene pasanse adankura hodo bi ebubugu ye no wo mo adwene ho abesi na nyade a wo mo etiase enti won besra se Ghana ban enko omomoa sanse ebremu de wani a ya adehye bi a wo ho ekaye no sa wo asori fia no wakwa akoda wadamfo bi nchen ya no wakwa akoda enti wo besra ban sa ban no enko wo mo amoa wo de sansem we nyina tudwabra na woni yensentweni Michael Krofi edi nkomo sei
ya heard the step but enya sie wienti ye need the ebeka
oh emoye di amaye efise ye nya baby na enti beswa se ono so dani de ni musa ono kwa enete honom sese ye hia mumu a muntumene na mbehwe na edi maye pa sunday na me wodem ho a na me ne me man mu wo honom a ene sie so ni start ye de na mfama nim nti short time ni hu se mfama ni din kofo container 20 ye age se ye pie freedom ho a e bia ne yakohia nti ye se ye hu ye se esu ni enuane nyina epeja ye na koto baby ni ye fam
yenso ye ne abrewa onya 90 years na wo dem iti bra yes anu na me ye se ne ye nko dem ti wo inside wo any mo free afem from mano gugu so no ntensi peja fa bro ye bompa ya bro de uradi afem ye hu baby ayemfa na me se na ne ye nko washroom ho e ho no de nansen ya na omo boss ni ti e wo form ti enko hye washroom ho nti ha sa de mu se from menchen ni peja ye gina nsu o che se